Coming up on this Friday episode of the Locked On Bucs podcast, I am joined by 10 Tampa Bay's Evan Klosky. We are going to talk about what we've seen in the first half of the season. We're going to talk about what we expect to see in the second half of the season. And we are going to give out some mid-season awards. All that and more right here on the Locked On Bucs podcast.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome back to the Locked On Bucs podcast. And thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or first watch every day. It is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And this episode is free and on all platforms. Thank you to our friends over at McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I am loving it. I'm especially loving that McRibs are back. Oh, yes. But I am Jake Jarman. I am joined by 10 Tampa Bay's Evan Klosky. You can check out everything that I'm doing over at BucsNation.com. Make sure you're following along on Twitter at LockedOnBucs, at JYarko_Bucs, at eKlosky WTSP, and at Bucs_Nation. If you're watching on YouTube, you can check out the Twitter handles right there underneath our faces that are made for radio. And please subscribe while you are there. Evan, it's fun to have you here on a Friday episode. We're going to have some fun with this one. No game to preview. We are almost a week removed from the pain and suffering that was the House of Horrors in New Orleans. So we're going to take a look back at the first half of the season. We're going to look ahead to the second half. We're going to hand out some pretend trophies. But let's start.
It's in your budget, right?
I'm sorry?
It's your budget. You got the trophies, right?
Yes. That's why they're imaginary. I can have my son, make some out of paper mache and maybe present it to the players when we're in Indianapolis here in just a couple of weeks to check out the Bucs and Colts game. But let's take a look back at the first half of the season. And let's get your thoughts initially on kind of what you've seen out of this team over the course of the first 8 weeks. There have been some real high highs, some real low lows. There's been some frustrations. There's been some excitement. It's had a little bit of everything. So, looking back at the first 8 games, 6-2 record, first place in the NFC South, what are kind of some of your takeaways?
All right, first takeaway, unbelievably injured. 2, the team's ability to overcome those injuries. 3, their schedule has been real soft, and when they haven't played a soft team, they have not played great. 4, the offense is tremendous. 5, the defense has shown notable improvement since game 1, and speaking more to Todd Bowles and his schematic changes to really emphasize certain players and overshadow the issues that they have, as I mentioned, with those injuries. So that's like right off the top of the dome where I'm thinking the fact that this team has been able to overcome those injuries speaks to the depth. It speaks to the experience and the veteran presence. The offense is humming. And it's a bit concerning that the Rams and the Saints games were decent eggs. But the Rams game, they didn't look like they deserved to be on the field with LA. The Saints game was all on them. Not to take anything away from the Saints, but the Bucs screwed that one up. The penalties and the turnovers, we've talked about that ad nauseum. So I think that is very fixable. I am worried down the line about a team like the Rams who just got Von Miller. So I'm interested to see as we move into the back half, and you have to play the Saints again. You got the Bills. The schedule's still fairly soft. How they're going to look, and do we believe they're going to be runaways with the division?
Well, I think David had a really good point on our episode. If you subscribe to YouTube, you got the episode on Tuesday. If you're a podcast listener, it came out on Wednesday. In order for the Bucs to not win the NFC South, it wouldn't have to involve a monumental collapse by the Bucs, because a New Orleans Saints team, as great as their defense is, and I want to again, there were some comments on the YouTube section. I was making excuses and blaming the refs. I said multiple times the referees were not the reason that they lost that game. New Orleans has an absolutely outstanding defense. They're getting Michael Thomas back, but you're talking about a team now that is being run by Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian. Are those guys going to be enough to go on a run to overtake the Buccaneers? Because as you pointed out, the schedule's been a little bit soft. Well, that's thanks to finishing second in the division last year. The Saints will have to play all those first place teams from last year. So it's something to kind of think about. I think the Buccaneers are still going to end up winning this division, but you're 100% right. The LA game, they came out flat. They did not look like they belonged on the same field. They still tried to work their way back a little bit, but in the Saints game, it was a reminiscent moment of being a Buccaneers fan, where the Bucs were beating the Bucs. They were shooting themselves in the foot. They were making stupid mistakes. Tom Brady in 3 games against the New Orleans Saints has 8 turnovers. In 21 other games as a starter, he has 12. So there's something.
And if you factor in I factor in the playoffs, and it's
Sure.
28 total games, 8 turnovers against the Saints, 15 against all of the teams. It's insane. And I do want to quickly mention that the Buccaneers have the 5th easiest strength of schedule for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I did, when I was on the Blitz with you guys before the season, I did predict 14-3. I still have hope. I still have hope that I can pull this off and they can turn a corner heading into the second half of the year. But right now, let's finish wrapping up some thoughts on the first half of the year. And yeah, the biggest one, of course, the biggest storyline, and it plays right into this bye week, is the injuries. We saw Gronk come back a little bit too early. He has to leave the game, has some back spasms. Sherman was suited up, but he was break glass in case of emergency situation. We see that Scotty Miller and Sean Murphy-Bunting now have the next 3 weeks where they're going to be available at practice, and they're working their way back. You're going to have Carlton Davis working his way back. You have Levante David back. So you're starting to get, as we talked about, if you were going to get hit with all these injuries, it was great for it to happen at the beginning of the year, because now after the bye week, we're going to start seeing some of these guys rolling back out, rolling back into the team. And I think it's going to help give both sides of the ball quite a boost.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent if you live in the Tampa Bay area or you root for the Tampa Bay teams. Very reminiscent of the Lightning last year. Lightning very injury prone throughout the year. They didn't have Stamkos. Hedman was injured, and Kucherov wasn't playing. The playoffs come. The band's back together. They figure it out. So that's all that matters. Get to the playoffs, and by that point, everybody should be fine. And let me also mention this very quickly. Not only do you want to be the 1 seed to get the bye, but you also want to be the 2 seed. If you're not going to be the 1, you want to be the 2, because the 7th seed in the NFC is going to be very, very weak. I think Carolina right now is the 7th seed in the NFC. Everybody else are like Super Bowl contenders. So you have to finish, I think, 1 or 2. It's not the worst thing in the world if you don't get the bye, but 1 or 2, that's what you're eyeing with the strength of schedule. It should be there for the Bucs, but if not, it's more important to be healthy than to push the issue and go for 1 and 2 and show up at the playoffs with people out that you need.
Right. And this is a team that last year, they were the 5 seed. They had to go on the road for 3 consecutive games before playing in the Super Bowl, had to go against the New Orleans Saints, had to go against the Green Bay Packers. So if they're healthy and they're clicking along late in the year the way they were last year, I'm not overly concerned with what seed they fall into, but obviously your preference would be the 1 to get the bye. But after that, it would certainly be the 2 seed. We are going to take a look at the path that the Buccaneers are going to have to take to secure one of those 2 things here in just a moment. But first, we have to give a shout out to our friends over at McDonald's. This episode of Locked On Bucs podcast is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's also a place you can always look forward to stopping at on a long road trip, rest your legs, and refuel. Coming up next week, I actually have to drive my son 6 hours to go to a hockey game that he will be playing in. And he's already asked, can we stop at McDonald's on the way to the hotel? Yes, absolutely. We can stop at McDonald's on the way to the hotel because I will eat some McRibs. You'll get your chicken nuggets. We'll both have McFlurries, and happy times will be had. Those are the kind of memories that we like to make on our road trips. So head to your local McDonald's to refuel and reconnect. Did somebody say a Locked On Bucs watch party? I'm loving it. Segment 2 here of the Locked On Bucs podcast, and we thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or first watch every day. I am joined by Evan Klosky of WTSP. And Evan, 6-2 through the first half. I say almost half, like the first 46.5%, whatever it is, now that there's an odd number of games because it's the NFL. But you talked about you want to secure that 1 seed, but if you can't get the 1, you want the 2. Here's what the Bucs have coming up on the second half of the year after this bye week. They're at the Washington football team, at home against the New York Giants on Monday Night Football. They're at Indianapolis Thanksgiving weekend. My son and I will be there. Very excited for him to get to go and experience a regular season game. He's only been to 1 Buccaneers game in his life.
Oh, that's going to be great.
It's a preseason game against the Bengals, and the next morning, Roberto Aguayo was cut because he missed an extra point in the first quarter. So really excited to share that experience with him. After the Colts, we have the Buccaneers at the Falcons, home against the Bills. That's a big one. Then you have a primetime game at home against the New Orleans Saints. Finish out the season at Carolina, at the Jets, home against Carolina. Carolina can be a tricky game for sure. The Jets, who knows what they are? I mean, they're
bad. That's what they are.
But then they beat the Titans and the Bengals.
Yes. I'll tell you that first off, the Titans didn't have any receivers that game.
Well, yeah.
And 2, let me say this. In the National Football League, I don't care who you are playing. If you're going to stroll into a place and act like you're just going to go on and win, that's not how it's going to work. I don't care if you're playing the Jaguars or the Jets. And I think Cincinnati, a team that's young, was feeling themselves, was getting all the great press clippings, went into New York, said, we're going to, sleepwalk our way into this dub, especially coming off that Patriots blowout loss from the Jets, facing Mike White. And you know what? The Jets hung around, were leading for most of the game. He gave them life, and they felt confident. And that's, it's a rough combo. So
I got an email from our friends over at runyourpool.com. That's where the Locked On Bucs Survivor Pool was.
Yeah, I was a couple Survivor brackets from that.
Yeah, I was eliminated from the Locked On Bucs one. 42% of all remaining Survivor Pool players were eliminated because the Bengals lost to the Jets.
Well, it was a bloodbath. People had the Buccaneers too.
Oh wow, I would not have chosen that game for an eliminator pool.
Well, it depends if you used up the Bengals beforehand.
Right. That's what makes those so tough. But man, are they fun. So we see a tough stretch here. You get the Washington football team, you get the New York Giants. Then you have a tough stretch 3 out of 4 here, because I will include the Indianapolis Colts, especially on the road, in a game where they are inducting, I believe it's Dwight Freeney, into the Ring of Honor. If it's not Freeney, it's Mathis. It's one of those two guys is going into the Ring of Honor at halftime of that game. Then you have the Falcons, but then you have the Bills.
Robert Mathis.
It is Robert Mathis. Okay, I knew it was one of the two. You get the Bills and the Saints back-to-back. Both of them are at home, but obviously the Bucs and Saints at home on primetime didn't fare too well last season. Hopefully the tide changes. So there's still some opportunity here for missteps in the second half, especially in that tough 4-game stretch. What are you looking for out of this team coming out of the bye and heading into these games in the second half of the year?
I mean, consistency is something that they've done well. I just, I really need, first off, this team to take care of business against Washington and the Giants. And by the way, the Giants are as stingy of what are they, 2 wins? 1 win? I forget. They're stingy, and they'll be playing on Monday night. They'll be jacked up.
They got some weapons too. If Daniel Jones gets the ball.
That's the other thing. It's but whatever. You got to take care of those teams, and they start off the second half of the year on the road for 3 of 4 games. So this is a team that has certainly looked a lot different on the road than at Ray J. So immediately they can rectify some of those issues and figure that out. Because coming down to the back half of the schedule, that Bills and that Saints game, like that Bills game is the one that I'm circling. I need proof that this team can beat a squad like the Bills, who is the favorite right now to win the Super Bowl. They're 5-1. They're the favorites at this moment. So again, there's only 2 tests that we've seen the Bucs. It's the Rams and the Saints, and they've lost both. So I need them when they play a team, even like the Colts, the Panthers, the Bills, the Saints. Like I need to see that they look like the better team. So that is going to be my focus, is for them to continue what they're doing against the bad teams, rectify some road issues, and then in that tough stretch that you mentioned, prove that they're prepared for the playoffs and ready to go.
Yeah, I saw somebody on Twitter say that it was too bad that this is the bye week because he knew that Brady was going to come out ready to just absolutely annihilate whoever they faced this Sunday. And I thought, you know what? He's stewing on this for 2 weeks now. The whole team is stewing on this loss for 2 weeks before facing a very bad Washington football team, a team much like the Buccaneers. We're supposed to have one of the best defenses in the NFL and have severely underperformed all season. The Buccaneers should be able to go in and win that game by 30 points. But you're 100% right. Against the playoff caliber teams outside of Dallas in week 1.
Sorry, you're right. The Dallas game, that was a great game. And honestly, the Bucs, to give them credit, the Bucs played kind of like they did against the Saints and still won. The only difference was that the penalties weren't as egregious, but the turnovers were terrible.
And we didn't know.
I forget about the Dallas game. That's fair.
Well, but also to be fair to you, we didn't know who Dallas was. That was Dak's first game back. We didn't know that Dallas was going to be Dallas, who
Correct.
looks like a phenomenal team at that point in the year. Since then, they haven't lost. So credit to Dallas. But at the same time, Dak's first game back from an egregious injury, we didn't know how he was going to perform. He looked great, but the Bucs need to take care of the bad team. You should destroy the bad teams. This is a Buccaneers team that should be able to go out and impose their will against anybody that they face, and they haven't done it. It's been a constant rotation of shooting themselves in the foot with penalties and bad
decisions.
They had
the Bears game. That was pretty
Yeah.
The Bears, the Dolphins, they've taken care of business. I just think there have been stretches within those games outside of the Bears game where it's just been like 5-10 minutes where they lose focus.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you had to sum it up, your biggest key coming out of the bye week is what?
Getting healthier. They just need their talent pool back. Not to use that as an excuse. They just, like, you're having a full week off. You're going to have 14 days off. I expect to see some more bodies. And when I see more bodies, then I expect an elevated level of play. So if we're going to just ignore the uncontrollable there, I just think that the most important thing that I want to see coming back is the pre-snap penalties going away. It's been creeping up, and it didn't burn them until this this past week. So, Bruce Arians hammers it home constantly. The players have to, do what they did after the Chicago game last year. They have to all huddle around and say, we are going to make a cognitive effort to stop that. So they've been there, they've done that. And again, they were in a much worse place last year entering the bye than what they're entering this year. So that is also another positive.
All right. And my biggest key before we hit the next break is I need to see the flip switched. The way that it flipped after the bye last year, where these guys came together and said, this is what we need to do. This is how we're going to get better. That's what I need to see coming out against Washington, coming out against New York. Again, those are not good football teams, but that needs to carry over into that Indianapolis game, into that Buffalo game, into that New Orleans game. I want to see these players holding each other and holding themselves accountable, getting rid of the stupid mistakes that have cost them games, and looking more like the dominant team that we expected to see heading into the season. It's funny to say that, a 6-2 football team in first place in their division isn't looking dominant, but we know what this team is capable of. We just haven't seen them put it all together, when it mattered the most. So that is my biggest key for the second half. Hold each other accountable, hold yourselves accountable, be the dominant team in the NFL that we all know that they are capable of being. One of the things that I always look forward to every year, Evan, is Thanksgiving. It is my favorite holiday. I get to sit there and gorge myself without judgment. I get to watch football all day. I get to start my Christmas shopping for the kids with all the Amazon Prime deals and all of that. It's phenomenal. But I hate pumpkin pie. I hate it. And so, out of all the delicious food, I don't get the treat at the end, but something that's going to help me out with that this year is a Built Bar. That's right. I can dive into a Built Bar while everybody else is eating that disgusting, gelatinous, gross blob. I can feast on something delicious, feel good about it. One slice of pie has upwards of 300 calories. That's on the low end. Imagine when you have to put the whole tub of Cool Whip on the slice of pie just to choke it down. You're bumping those calories even further up. Built Bars are only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, plenty of protein. Instead of coconut cream pie, you can have a coconut Built Bar. Instead of the raspberry pie, I'm going to go with the raspberry Built Bar. Lots of good flavors to replace any pie out there. They're low calorie, low carb, low fat, high protein, covered in 100% chocolate. It's a great option for when you're hungry. If Thanksgiving isn't coming soon enough, go for a Built Bar or 2. Share some at your family gatherings. It will make things less awkward. Maybe Aunt Betty hasn't tried a Built Bar yet. Aunt Betty needs to have a blueberry muffin Built Bar. New surprises all month long. Limited time flavors arriving at Built.com regularly. Check this site often. There's nothing like Built Bar Black Friday. Mark your calendar. Black Friday will be a huge event with all sorts of surprises. Just go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15, and you are going to get 15% off your order. Again, promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15 at Built.com. This episode is also free and available on all platforms thanks to BetOnline.ag, back and better than ever with a new web interface for the start of the basketball season. More props, odds, lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to our new updated desktop mobile website. Sign up today. Receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code LOCKED ON to receive your bonus from basketball, football, baseball, postseason, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Wrapping things up here on a Friday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. James Yarko, Evan Klosky at JYarko_Bucs at E Klosky, WTSP. Let's have some fun, Evan. Do you like fun? I enjoy fun.
I like fun.
Let's hand out.
Fun's cool.
Let's hand out some make-believe awards If these players are watching or listening and they actually want physical awards for this, my children will be more than happy to paper mache
They
together.
had no expense.
That's right. They will paper mache together some awards for these guys.
Macaroni necklace.
Yeah, I will make them paper mache like a little mini Lombardi, like I got up there from the Pewtercast podcast of the year, voted on by the fans. Thank you very much. Evan, we are going to kick things off with our first half MVPs. And since you are the guest, I will defer to you, good sir. Who is your first half MVP for the Bucs?
I'm breaking the rule that we do every week where I can't pick Tom Brady, because when we're doing these half-season awards, we have to allow him to get his recognition. So
100%.
Thomas Brady, 44 years old. He is not just my Buccaneers MVP. He is my league MVP. I know the Saints game leaves a sour taste in our mouth, but when you look at the bigger picture, the guy has been unbelievable. He is a monster reason why this team will be a championship contender again. So, Mr. Brady, enjoy.
My perfect pick. It's the obvious pick, which is why I had to dig a little bit deeper. And I think my selection might surprise you a little bit. But my first half MVP is one of the reasons that Brady is doing so well. And that's our guy on the far right side of the offensive line, Tristan Wirfs.
Really good
What
pick.
Absolute phenomenal
Unit.
player this kid is. He is a monster. Heading into that Bears game, everybody was, we were seeing the recycling of that gif of Mac tossing him around. Wirfs didn't allow anything. He has been one of the most consistent, one of the most solid, one of the most dominant offensive linemen across all of the NFL, not just with the Buccaneers. So he is a big reason why Brady is standing upright in the pocket, getting these passes off, leading the Buccaneers to 6 victories in 8 games. Tristan Wirfs, criminally underrated, not talked about. He better be an all-pro selection this year because that boy has earned it.
Yep.
We are going to move over to the most improved, and you could take this a couple of different ways. This could be the most improved compared to 2020. This could be the most improved since week 1. However you want to view it, but my most improved, I think, is just as easy as choosing Tom Brady for MVP, and it's regular season Lenny. This guy has asserted himself as the number 1 running back on this team, and he did it early on, and he has gotten better each and every week, not only as a running back, but as a pass catcher out of the backfield. He's become an integral part of what the Buccaneers do on offense. And without Leonard Fournette's performances throughout this season, I'm not sure if the Buccaneers are sitting at 6-2. It's great to see the growth that he has had in this offense since the end of last year. It was still Rojo getting the call as the first, the starting running back, until Leonard Fournette just straight up grabbed that job away from him and said, no, this is my backfield. This is my offense. I'm going to help this team win games. Kudos to my most improved player, Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, regular season Lenny, Lombardi Lenny, most improved Lenny, go grab a bag of donuts Lenny, whatever. That's obvious choice. Mine is kind of my most surprising player, which I think makes him most improved, is Ross Cockrell.
I love that pick.
So I actually don't think he had a great game against the Saints either. But having said that, with all the injuries that have gone on, this guy stepped in day 1 at training camp, made his presence known, was bouncing around from position to position, and I think that he has really held his own. No, he is not, a lockdown corner by any means, but the fact is things could really be going sideways with all these injuries if he wasn't around, and I think he's really stepped up to the plate and has done a very formidable job there defensively for Todd Bowles and company. And it's had some big moments, maybe not on the stat sheet, but just being able to cover certain guys throughout games. Ross Cockrell, tip of the cap. I see you.
Yeah, he was my other option when I wrote down. I wrote down a couple of options for each of these categories. Ross Cockrell was my guy on the defensive side of the ball. But one more time, we're going to reiterate how important it is for this team to perform well against teams like the Bills, like the Colts, like the Saints in the second half of the year, try to secure that number one seed in the playoffs for the NFC, get that bye week, get the home field advantage. Who needs a big second half of the season in order to make that happen?
Yeah, and I know we're running out of time here, but I'm going to go with Jason Pierre-Paul. I understand he's injured. I feel bad saying his name, but 2.5 sacks from this guy up to this point is just not up to the standard that we expect from JPP. Injuries or not, you're on the field. I need you to perform. He's on pace for 5 sacks. I'm hoping that maybe by season's end he can be up to 8 or 9.
Yeah, that's a good pick. He's had impact plays that just don't show up on the stat sheet.
Yeah,
you do expect
somebody who had a good game against the Saints.
Exactly. But you do expect those sack numbers to be a little bit higher. I'm also staying on the defensive side of the ball because I think the defense needs the most improvement coming out of the bye week, and I am going to choose a guy that is coming off probably the worst game of his career. He was my preseason bold prediction to win Defensive Player of the Year, and he has 1 tackle for loss on the season, no sacks. It's Devin White.
Yeah, he was on my list.
Devin White has not been playing up to the level that we expect Devin White to play to, and I think a lot of what happened against New Orleans was the emotion of the game, being back in Louisiana, trying to match the intensity of the fans and the opposing team, and he just got away from what he does. Still had some good plays, still helped shut down Alvin Kamara as much as one can shut down Alvin Kamara, but we need more of the positive impact plays out of Devin White, forcing turnovers, getting interceptions, forcing fumbles, getting sacks, not the negative impact of roughing the passer, taunting. You can't have that out of your captain and a guy that is supposed to anchor the middle of the defense. While we're at it, Levante David not having the best season either. He could use a little bit of improvement too, but I think it's more important that Devin White plays up to the level that we expect him to play, that he expects himself to play, rather than what we've seen way too much of early in the season.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think he's a casualty of Bowles having to reconfigure what he wants to do defensively because of so many injuries.
That's a good point.
Certainly his, even with that, he could have a little bit, some more impact plays in there.
Absolutely. With that, Evan, we are going to get out of here. Let all of the fine folks listening and watching know what you have going on over at 10 Tampa Bay, and of course with the Blitz on Sundays.
That's right. So the Blitz every Sunday, 11:30 in the morning. We got our guy Simeon Rice talking about all things Buccaneers. We get crypto in there, fashion. He turns around stale sound bites, the old cliche sound bites, and lets us know what they're really trying to say. He's a character. So lock into 10 Tampa Bay for that. Also 10tampabay.com. We got all your Buccaneers info, Lightning, Rays, local sports. We're your source. And then you can also find me on Twitter at eCloskey WTSP. If you hit me up 99% of the time, I'll reply. Be nice. Don't be nasty. And then also on Facebook, you can find me as well as on Instagram at eCloskey.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm very excited to hear what Simeon has to say about this Saints game. I know he's going to have some real good stuff over there. Yeah, make sure you're checking out the Blitz. Thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or first watch every day. We appreciate it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We really appreciate that. Fill out some comments, interact with us over there. But make sure that you are making your second listen of the day, the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in under 30 minutes. It's free and available on all platforms. Send us your voicemails to 813-444-5841, or you can email us at lockedonbuckspodcast@gmail.com. Check out everything going on over at bucksnation.com. David and I will be back next week. Full week of episodes. The bye week, even for us, is over, and we will start diving in to the game against the Washington football team. Should be a good one. And you could also listen to David over at Locked On Washington Football Team, as he's the co-host over there too. You're going to get lots of good information out of him, just like you do on this show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, be good to one another. And we thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.